Thanks for joining us.
Hi,
Let
everyone.
me just mute this.
Thanks for joining us.
Here we go.
All right.
So we're back live, and today we're going to talk about something a little bit different, or I don't know, it's just it kind of felt fun. I was just feeling into this 2 weeks ago, I think. So yeah, the topic is being pathetic. And what I want to talk about, or what I sort of mean by this, it's essentially, we could say that the topic is letting go, learning to let go, and learning to be okay and find stability within our system, within our day, within our experience of life, and just finding that peace within when we feel like we have messed up, when we feel like we showed up in a way that was too much or not enough, when we, oftentimes this happened, for example, when we show up very vulnerably, like we share something very emotional or vulnerable with, it could be with somebody close to us, or maybe even what's kind of feels even more crunchy is when we show up vulnerably in front of people that we are not so close to, right? Like in a professional settings, or you just met somebody and you have some awkward feelings, maybe that concern them or don't concern them. And you sort of speak to that, or you kind of feel like it's obvious. And then you sort of feel like, oh my God, like I feel pathetic, right? Or maybe somebody rejects you, right? And you feel pathetic. You're like, oh, like I made myself vulnerable. Maybe I expressed some feelings, or maybe, I thought we were friends and they rejected me, right? So again, maybe you end up feeling pathetic, right? Or sometimes you feel like you've crossed the line and you're like, oh my God, I completely, misperceived this situation, or I said something that I wish I didn't, or that I thought was okay, but now I see how it totally wasn't okay. So again, you end up feeling pathetic. So today I want to talk about how we can cope with these feelings, and if that's actually something helpful to tell yourself, like, oh, I'm pathetic, like, and what can we do, and how can we work with it? Should we work with it? Should we do something about it? Is there any sort of coaching that we can guide ourselves through this experience? Is there something that we can say or do? And then maybe Kirsi and I can share a little bit of our own experiences and sort of what has been showing up for us and how we get on with this, it's life, right? Like life happening to you. And I think if anybody says that they never feel that way, they never feel pathetic, I think they're lying, right? Especially the people who seem to have the biggest self-confidence, like they're usually just trying to cover something up, like a sort of insecurity. So I'm pretty sure all of us have these moments when we're like, was this totally stupid what I just said or did? So yeah, I hope this is going to be a fun topic. Hi, Kirsi. What do you have to add to this?
Hi, Claire. Well, it's really a good topic. I love it because I feel like we need to kind of bring that pathetic in us to the forefront so that we can really talk about this thing. And that actually feels really freeing. So first of all, I think we were late, which, it's okay. But again, it's a little pathetic to be late on your own show, right? So I kind of like relaxed into being late. I'm like, okay, this is it. This is being pathetic right now. So yeah.
You were kind of excited about it, huh? You were like, let's be pathetic right here, right now.
Yeah, looking at it from a different perspective all of a sudden, because pathetic to me, let's say now first, energetically, means, oh my gosh, I'm ashamed of myself, or I'm blaming myself of something, or I'm very confused of whether, like you were mentioning, whether I did something wrong or whether I did it okay, like just confused and worried about what people think and worried about how people see me, and I was kind of, I wrote down a question: why do we feel pathetic? Like, why do we need to feel pathetic? Like, why do we need this in our lives? Why is this showing up in our lives? And I'm curious to hear your answer, but I kind of got something to hold on to right now. Not maybe an answer, but maybe an opening of a conversation. But what do you think? Is anything coming to you?
That's a very good question. I guess what's coming through for me right now, as you say it, it's kind of like we feel that we need to hold ourselves. Can you hear the planes? There's planes passing over. Okay, good.
No, I don't hear them.
Okay, good. Because they're so loud.
Wow.
I feel like we sort of perceive that we need to hold ourselves to a certain standard, or like a certain, there's like a line, there's like a standard or an expectation that we need to aspire to at all times, that we need to reach, we need to hold ourselves to the standard, and like, this is how I need to perform, essentially. Like, I need to exist in this world according to a certain standard, and if I fall beneath it, I am not good enough, or I'm not a good fit for society. I don't comply with the rules, and it's a bad thing. And I'm gonna be, essentially, there's like a fear underneath, right? If we dig deeper into it, it's a fear that I'm gonna be ostracized. I'm not gonna follow the rules, the unspoken rules of the society. So the society's be like, you're not one of us because you don't follow rules. And if you don't follow rules, you can't be one of us, right? So yeah, it's like a fear. And I'm sure we've talked about this before, but it's a very existential fear. It's that fear of, back in the day when we lived in communities, and we still kind of do, but not so much, right? Like, we don't necessarily need people around us. Not like we do, actually. Like, it is one of our basic needs. And if we don't have connection and community, we're gonna die. Like, it is actually a need. We're not gonna die from one day to another. But like, if you don't have human connections, like, it's deteriorating your health. So it's literally a basic physical need, biological need, but we don't perceive it as such, right? Because it's like a slow thing. It's not like you don't drink water for a few days and you die, right? But in the past, it could cause a very quick death. Like, if you because you couldn't hunt for the food or the water and all the things all by yourself. You couldn't protect yourself all by yourself if you were like out in the wild, living off the land. So we need it to be part of a community. So it's like a survival mechanism that makes us want to be like conform with the unspoken rules of the society and be accepted. So I guess it's like a residue of that survival mechanism that is constantly working on a subconscious level, trying to have us survive by conforming, by anticipating what other people's expectations of us are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's I love everything you're saying, and it just like inspires me to also look at this situation or this subject from a perspective of a child, because I work with children every day, and I have done that for the past 30 years. So from a child's point of view, it's still very dangerous out here, because they cannot take care of themselves. And they live with us adults who are still in this primitive fear in our system. So, yeah, I mean, as we can see, we can talk about, being pathetic, but, it's really not pathetic. It's like you said, it's really fear. It's really fear. And what would happen? What would happen if we would just start breaking all the rules? And I think this is what like clowns, sometimes aspire to do. But because it's not just, those things that we can turn into really funny stuff. it's also something really serious that we need to, you know, like kind of become aware of. Yeah, it's a really amazing subject to for that matter, because we learned this very early. You know, children learn to, like, okay, we could talk about the emotion of feeling pathetic. You know, that comes from that reflection, how we see it, not even the way the world is necessarily, or your world. Maybe not thinking you're pathetic, but you're thinking that yourself. So you form that inner world of those emotions and stories that build around all of that. You know?
Yeah.
And the child, it shows right away, you know, they're ashamed and they get disconnected, and that's basically what it is as well. I'm curious actually to know what that term means. I didn't look it up.
That's actually, I think pathos, it's like a Greek word for chaos, I want to say, but please do look it up.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can. Do you want me to grab my iPad or?
Actually, let's pull it right here.
Okay.
Pathos, a quality that evokes pity or sadness. From 16th century Greek word pathos for suffering, related to pashkein, suffer, and pentos, grief.
Pity, sadness. Wow.
Yeah. Pity, sadness, and the etymology is from the words to suffer and grief.
Suffer. Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's very interesting.
So we feel pity about ourselves. We pity ourselves. Like I pity myself. That was so lame.
Yeah, and so there's some kind of a story then, you know, behind that story, yes, because it is such a low frequency. Like, how can we keep that up? We have to have a story, you know, to keep it up.
So can I ask you, Kirsi, what if you feel into feeling pathetic, what are the actual emotions that you feel? Like if you like, I don't know, I don't know, can you think of a situation when you felt pathetic, and can you sort of like try to dissect like what was the primary emotion, or what were all the different emotions that you felt?
Right. So, like I said, I haven't even, you know, looked into this at all. So this is merely my experience. And that can be very different to somebody else. Personally, I feel shame, fear, kind of chaos, confusion. Really just don't want to be there. Yeah. Just don't want to be there. I don't want this to be happening. Don't want to be there. And don't even, you know, it's kind of depressing too, because it does want to isolate me then. It almost wants to, like, the feeling of it, the emotions, the story wants to say, okay, don't ever come here anymore. You know, don't ever show your face here.
Yeah.
You know, this is now they now know or think that you're pathetic. So there's no life here. You know, like, go somewhere else. And that might be my leaving pattern. You know, somebody else might have another survival story to that, how to deal with it.
Very good point. I want to come back to that the pattern and to like, you know, maybe other people have a different experience. But first, let's look at because you mentioned these emotions. I pulled this up. I asked you because you were saying something about a low frequency. So we've talked about frequencies a little bit before, right? And it's like different emotions have different frequencies. And if we look at what you mentioned shame, you mentioned fear. That's very, very contracted here. Like that's like shame is
and
like,
blame, like
and
self-blame. So
yes,
that's
guilt.
guilt. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like, oh, I did this. That was so stupid. I shouldn't have done that. I blame myself. I feel the guilt for the, you know, pathos that I've
And don't you,
created.
yeah, sorry.
No,
Sorry,
go,
I interrupted you, girl.
please go ahead.
Don't you feel the density of that energy?
Ugh, I don't
It
even.
actually makes like there's no like room to be there. It's no wonder that, you know, people actually commit suicide, God forbid, you know, in places like that, because it feels like it's so dense that you will never get out of it. But then that's why it's so good to talk about this, because like we have said so far, I don't know if this has come through, but this is what I'm trying to bring through as well, is that it's really not even the truth. It's our truth through that story, but it's not anybody else's truth. It's almost like we're projecting our energy to them, and people even pick up, and maybe they don't have nothing else to think about, so they start thinking that we're pathetic. Who knows? I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? Like that doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Maybe that's a good, I wanted to explore something else, but I'm gonna make a note to myself and explore it later. Maybe that's a good segue into, you know, what I essentially wanted to talk about today. It's like how do we learn to be okay with that feeling of like, or like maybe that thought of like, because you know, it's like when you feel it, it's what you just described, like you feel you're so dense, and maybe I'm gonna actually share this again. It's like you feel like you're here, you're so contracted, like that place is so dense, so contracted, you feel so small, so squeezed into that experience, so that yeah, like it's just really not a nice place to be. So when you feel that way, you feel that way. Like it's very hard to get yourself out of that feeling. But what I want to explore today is when you get to a point in life when you have that thought, like, oh my goodness, like I'm pathetic, but actually the feeling's not there. And I think that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I used to be stuck in this so much. Like every time, you know, I would like first I would think, oh, this is cool. I'm going to say this, or I'm going to do this thing. And then you show yourself, you know, like you put yourself out in the world and you go out there and you say the thing, or you do the thing, or you share that thing on social media, or you dress that way because you think it's cool, right? Or you think you're funny or whatever. And then you're like, oh my God, did I just do that? Like, was that stupid? Wait, I'm actually pathetic. Like, why am I wearing this? Or like, why did I just post that on social media? Like sort of checking and going back and being like, are people watching this? What are they thinking? Like, do they think I'm pathetic? Right. And so, you know, I used to be stuck a lot in that place. I would always like sort of obsess about like how to, you know, think about what are people thinking about me. But I don't find myself in those places anymore. But like I catch the thought, it's like, wait, like Claire, are you being pathetic? Like, did you really just say that? Like, that's pathetic. But I don't actually feel it. It's just like a thought, because we're so conditioned into thinking that constantly, like monitoring ourselves and policing ourselves and conforming into that, like, no, like we don't talk about these things out loud, or like we don't say these things, right? Like just either say something normal, or like don't even bother speaking. Like don't make other people uncomfortable by your like edgy, deep, you know, emotional, vulnerable, whatever kind of shares. So yeah, it's like when it's like you start observing, it's just that thought, but it doesn't weigh so.
Yeah, social media is a really good training ground for this, isn't it?
Would you like to talk about that?
Wow. I'm telling you, like,
Could you actually, yeah, could you share that? Like, could you share, because I feel like you do have a really good story of like starting at that place where you feel that heaviness, like you feel pathetic.
yeah,
And then you sort of like you push through and you just sit with that and sit with that and just be with it. And at some point it's just like that thought of like, oh well, maybe that was a little stupid, but whatever, I just keep going. So you just kind of shift, you like go from this dense low place and this low frequency, you
yeah.
sort of elevate up.
Yeah, and you actually start elevating through these emotions.
Oh,
You know,
sorry, I
if you
literally.
would keep it there just for one moment more. And
Oh
I
yes.
don't have my glasses, so I'm trying to maybe you can read them. Oh, okay, now I can see a little bit better. Yeah. So yeah, you start actually, you know, because it does take courage, but I think even before that, there's this pride that we have towards ourselves. It's a good pride. It's a beautiful pride. It's like an ownership. Like we start taking ownership of our purpose, our life, you know,
Mm.
the quality of our life, you know, and we understand, you know, something about bigger picture because we carry a purpose. And by us, you know, people who do the work within themselves, you know, whether it's mindset work or whether it's energetic or both, hopefully, I would say. So we understand that we are constantly training ourselves to become really a vessel of these energies that are acceptance and, you know, neutrality and courage and love and joy. And so we're constantly wanting to expand and live in that place where we have more freedom. So this social media, like, it looks like something. We can't just pray it up. Like, we gotta actually step into it. We could pray it up and wait for it to drop from the sky magically forever, but we actually need to work our flesh into it so that we can walk it. That's my experience. And being in an experience of social media, which is uncomprehensible when you start thinking about the amounts of views and people that you can reach just by one reel. Just by one, just one can reach millions of people. So this is a reality, and this is a huge reality to my system. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's beautiful that some people can maybe just go and, you know, just own it, but I can't. I need to train my system to own that.
Yeah.
That capacity. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I mean, I was literally almost throwing up. I was so much in fear. And I was in fear and desire, both at the same time. And as I allowed the desire to become bigger than my fear, I made that step. I made that real. I made a stupid ones. I mean, so literally dumb ones, where I'm looking like a grandma, which I am, but you know what? I don't look like it all the time. But in this reel, I allowed myself to look like a grandma and jumping in my garden. I mean, just dumb stuff, you know? But it was looking like something, you know, to gain that courage out of that fear and apathy and guilt and shame, you know, that patheticness. Like, you overcome that patheticness. Is that even a word? Patheticness. I don't know.
It's fine. We make words here all the time.
I know, right? We need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, I can go on, you know, but
You do.
it's just a beautiful opportunity that we all have and it's not easy. And the more we talk about it, I was just actually speaking about this or seeing this, somebody was posting about this. Yeah, maybe I saw a reel where this lady was literally talking about when we start talking about the reality of our feeling pathetic when we come over here, and not just like, let me just come and show how much money I'm making and how great I am and where I'm going and everybody follow me. You know, that's not really going to take us anywhere, because I mean, not me, maybe somebody, but
Yeah.
not me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Totally.
Like I get to grow with this. I get to show how does it look like, because I used to think really that success was that all of a sudden I was just going to be successful and everybody would just see me successful. Hee ha. I come to find out my journey is a little bit different. Like, I get to be pathetic, I get to show my patheticness, my, like, I'm looking, I'm searching, I don't know anything. I mean, I just, I just came up saying that I've been trying to be an entrepreneur for years and I don't know what marketing is. I don't know how to market myself. And I just like had this epiphany after years.
Wow.
But who cares? Because that's the truth, And that's the truth for so many,
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's-
then all of a sudden when we're all pathetic, then it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah. You know what's interesting to me? What's really interesting is that like that feeling of like that's pathetic, it really shows itself in the places where we're most vulnerable. It's really like like it shows itself usually when we're vulnerable, because sometimes we're trying to put on a mask, like we try to be so cool that it's pathetic, right? But again, it's such a vulnerable place, because why do we try to pretend we're so cool? Because we feel so insecure, right? Like the ego is just like screaming, like I need to be inflated because I don't feel safe, because I don't feel like I'm good enough. I don't feel like I'm big enough. I feel like I'm this small, insecure little thing. So I need to inflate myself. So it also comes from a place of great vulnerability, of that like hurt little child on the inside, right? But I think a lot of the times, it's like we bring our most inner feelings or creativity or unique expression out, right? Like I don't know, like you write a poem, right? And then it's like so vulnerable, or like like somebody, like you have all these teenage movies when like this child or like this teenager writes this like love letter to somebody, and then everybody reads it and it's pathetic, right? And it's like that most vulnerable, like core, like the raw emotions, like the depth of your love or your pain or your sadness, like your creativity, like all this like depth to it, and you bring it out, or like when somebody dresses in a particular way because they want to express their particular style or feeling. So you really bring that like uniqueness, that most you of you out into the world, and then it's like people look at you like, wow, you're pathetic, right? Like isn't that so painful? And isn't that crazy that like we're so discouraged from, because that hurts so much, right? That we're so discouraged from like bringing that core out.
Mm.
Yeah, that's just sort of what's coming for.
Yeah, I just like stopped feeling into everything that you were saying.
Yeah.
And I think there's just like right now I'm just really like stopped by what you said. Like, I literally cannot even remember one iota that you just said. But I'm energetically feeling like something just shifted.
Yeah.
And even though I don't understand what it is, I'm still going to lean towards it. And I'm going to trust it. I'm just going to follow it. So just kind of feeling into what we have said today, what's being said, what is in this space right now, not even what's being said, but what is in this space right now? What can you sense in this space where we are all together? Because I really am putting a lot of weight on this show today. From my perspective, this is a really, really important conversation. Because I'm in online space, creating content every day, just as you are. And as an entrepreneur, and as a human being, I'm sensing the space, you know, where we come and work. You know, we come and work together, we come and communicate, we come and try to connect with each other. And it's a lot out here right now. And I think this conversation all by itself can bring something fresh. And I'm not saying we're the only ones talking something fresh, but this is definitely fresh.
Yeah.
To this space, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank
And
you.
I love that. Yeah, I love
Thank you
that.
for that, Kirsi. I kind of wanted to shift into talking about, well, we kind of did already, but I feel like I brought it back to the more to the lower frequencies, but I kind of want to talk about like how I perceive it, like what I see in myself, you know, after like years and years of granted personal development, but it's more like the healing and like, you know, like finding that core and like these energetic skills of like finding my ground and finding my center and finding sort of myself, like my authentic self. And really like establishing and sensing into that very solid felt sense of this is who I am, like this is Claire. And it's, I feel like when you know who you are and you feel yourself, like you literally, like we say, oh, I don't feel myself today, but like, what does that actually mean? Like when you really feel yourself, it's like, oh, here I am. Like you sort of drop into your central channel and you know you're here. Like, yeah, this is how it feels when I'm actually here. And as opposed to like, you know, sometimes we're so scattered, we're like trying to please other people, thinking about what other people think of us, or we're like thinking about a million things at the same time, like we're running late, or we're thinking about tomorrow, thinking about yesterday, thinking about what this person said. And so we're not here. We're like, we're scattered, right? But when you find that core within you and you can feel yourself, you like have that strong sense of self and you know who you are. And ironically, you know who you are, but maybe you can't really describe it in words because you start realizing that labels, like these like word identities that we create in order to communicate with other people, and like it's very human to want to put things into boxes because it helps us understand the world, because the world is so complex that, you know, if we don't have labels and don't put things into neat boxes, like it's a mess. We don't, you know, how do we make sense of the world? So it's like, oh, where are you from? Oh, you're from that country. That means this. Oh, you're a woman. Oh, you're a man. Like, oh, you're, you know, you have this skin color, or like, oh, you're this tall, you have that age, or like, you know, like we have, you're married, you're not married. We have all these identities. Or like, I'm vegan, I drink alcohol, I don't, I smoke, I'm a non-smoker, I'm, you know, heterosexual, homosexual, whatever, like all these labels. So it has sense, like it has a meaning, it makes, you know, it helps us make sense of the world, but you may start to realize that once you have that felt sense of who you are, less and less you have the need for these labels. It's like, for example, for me, like I don't drink alcohol, but like if I feel like having a glass of alcohol, I'll have a glass of alcohol, and And I'm not going to be worried about what that means about me because I don't have an identity about not drinking alcohol. I just decide not to drink it because it doesn't feel good. But I'm not like, oh, I'm a non-alcohol drinker. And so that's how I'm gonna, like, I don't care. Like, if I feel like I want to start drinking alcohol tomorrow, I'll start drinking alcohol tomorrow. And I don't care if you come to me and you're like, Claire, but you say you don't drink and now you're drinking. Like, what kind of person are you? It's like, I don't really care how you think about me because it's not my identity. Like, it's my identity is fluid. Like, I know who I am. And so I don't need to say that I'm this or I'm that or I'm this or I'm that. And so I feel like once I have established, I have done that work and I found that energetic like center point and I found that ground and I found that center, it's like now I know who I am and it's like I sort of have that ground no matter what, or like, you know, no, maybe not no matter what, like for sure I still get, you know, off my center and feel shaky at different points, but like there can be a time when I do something and that perhaps I'm not so proud of, or like mess something up, or, you know, like maybe you show up on social media and like people don't like it or whatever it is. And in the past, it would have been not just debilitating, but it would be like completely like what Kirsi said, like I want to disappear from planet Earth. I don't ever want to show up here again because I just made a complete fool out of myself. What are people gonna think about me? I can't ever show up here again. But now it's like, well, that wasn't great, but here I am. Like I feel myself. I'm still here. Right. And I'm still myself. And it doesn't end up being that scary. Like what we were saying about the feelings, like there's more like the thought, but the feelings are not there so much. Like they're there a little bit, but it's not like you're in this contracted place where you can't get out of it. Is that your experience as well, Kirsi, with like all the, you know, like the work, the energetic and healing work we've been doing?
Oh my goodness, yes, 100%. And then once you, not even once you have, that's not the right way to say it. But in my experience, I have been in that place for a long time. So when I started feeling that there was an opening and there was that expansion coming in, I knew it was different. You know, I knew because it started being sustainable. You know,
Wow.
it wasn't just like a puffer in my head that I had to kind of like create with mindset affirmations and keep it strong and, you know, discipline my
Keep
mind
going, power,
and slap
willpower.
myself a little bit if I started thinking negative, you know, just whir, you know, but that didn't work. So now I started feeling like, okay, this is coming from a different place and this sticks, this stays, and this is
Yeah.
actually like a ripple effect. Like, oh my gosh, this is like into potential, you know, like in
Yeah.
math we have yeah, so this is going exponentially
Recording in progress. We're receiving all
forward,
the
you
comments.
know, and it's touching
they
other
are
people.
coming in.
Oh, wow. I wonder what they're saying. That might have been something important. We don't know. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know. Some weird sound started coming from somewhere. I don't know what that was.
That was
Pathetic,
interesting.
isn't it? Keep going. I'm sorry.
That's right. Yeah, okay, so I don't know where I was. That was let me see. Or where we are now.
Where are we now? I like that.
Yeah, where are we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really feels good. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. Excuse me. We have a lot of stuff going on at my workplace. Hold on one second. That's pathetic, right? To that. Mm-mm. It's not pathetic. Yeah, no, I'm not going to go there where I was going to go.
Okay.
Because I'm not inviting anything in any more than it is. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm saying that I'm so glad we're talking about this. I personally, it's very healing. Personally, I feel personally in this conversation and being able to express myself to, you know, of what I have seen and what my concerns are and what I'm living and, you know, and what I've been fighting through within myself. It feels really good to be able to express that, you know. So thank you for the topic.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, to me, essentially, like when you think about it, this is a like the conversation that I sort of imagine. It's, this topic is about letting go. Like when you start just relaxing into that feeling of like, oh, I'm pathetic. You let go, right? You let go of what people think of you, of those labels, like those identities that we try so hard to create for ourselves. Like we try to manicure our image. It's like, you know, I could be like, oh my God, like my nails are not nice anymore. So like, what are people gonna think? You know, like I'm trying to create an image that I look this or that. And now I show up in a way which doesn't correspond with this. Or like, you know, on social media, you try to like create this picture of yourself. Like you put so much effort in it. You want it to be like, again, like manicured, like, yeah, this is the impression, this is how it's gonna look. And then, you know, and then sometimes you're like, oh, well, here it slipped. Like here it's not what I would have liked it to be. So like that's a little pathetic, maybe, because I could have thought about this too, and I didn't. And now it's a failure. Or like I could have made more effort and fixed this stupid little thing, but I didn't. So that's a little pathetic, right? But it's like learning to let go and be like, well, it slipped. I'm human. Like I'll keep, you know, I'll survive. Like I'll keep going. Like people will, you know, maybe they'll think that I'm pathetic and maybe they'll be okay with it. And maybe they won't, some of them. And maybe I'm okay with that. Like it's like learning to let go. It's like, or like, you know, maybe you really mess up. Like maybe you make an actual mistake. You say something, you know, which is not so nice. You get angry or you misjudge a situation. And it's like, again, coming to terms with like, well, I've overstepped or I misunderstood, you know, maybe that was pathetic. And it's like, can I be okay with that? Can I find that patience for myself? Can I let go of getting it all right and being perfect all the time? And there's one other like big thing that I would like to invite in this space. And we sort of mentioned this at some point on the podcast earlier, where we spoke about I remember we talked about this pendulum. It's like, you know, when you're on your healing journey, you start learning new things. Like, for example, you start learning how to have boundaries or like expressing things to people. Well, like, you know, maybe your whole life you have been a good girl or a good boy and you just let everybody do anything to you and you say, oh, it's fine, it's okay. Oh yeah, I can help you. No, you can take my stuff. Or like, no, you can, you know, I'm tired, but you need my help, so I'll just help you. And you never say no to people, right? And then you start learning that you need to start taking care of yourself. So you start creating some boundaries and you start learning how to say no. And so if your whole life you've been in this extreme, the pendulum is going to start happening. So you're in one extreme. And when you let the pendulum loose, first of all, it's going to go all the way here. And it's going to go to the other extreme. And then it's going to keep on going back and forth. Like you're going to be like, no, I'm a good little girl. And then you're like, no, like nobody can do this to me. Like now I have found my boundaries. So now I'm going to take care of myself all the time. And maybe you're a bit too harsh on people. And then you realize, so you're like, oh my God, did I just really say this? Like I'm a horrible person. So the pendulum swings back, right? And it's going to swing for a little bit until you like find that center point where it really feels good to you and it feels in alignment and just sort of natural. But so I just want to say, like, you know, like that might happen. And I want to sort of invite everybody to like be okay with that. Like, just, you know, it's like maybe, yeah, like maybe you've never really expressed anything authentic to other people or, you know, on social media. And maybe you start doing that. And so chances are, if you've never said anything, never posted anything on social media, never sort of spoke about your feelings or never like dressed in an interesting way or whatever, once you start doing this, you're going to feel like this. You're going to be like,
Yeah.
I'm completely pathetic. Like I'm so pathetic. And so just like learning to be with those feelings and like allow yourself to go through that crazy pendulum, like those swings and those emotion swings, and that maybe you're not going to get it right and you're going to feel totally pathetic. It's part of the game.
Exactly. So good. Because a lot of people quit those in
When
the friendship. Yeah. But it will come down,
and that's what happened to you, right?
you will find your, yeah, exactly. You will find your center. And then this is what success is. It is a forever series of failures, because that's how you learn. That's how you, and then when you do it again, you do it better and better and better and better. If you never do it expecting it to be the best, that's when you are in the fringes, and that's when you fall off, because you can't exist over there.
Right.
You can't exist over there. You will find your center, or you can, but it's just that's not the kind of existence I'm looking for.
Yeah.
When you can, it's sustainable. And because we do have, we're not just talking about success, we're talking about wholeness and happiness, joy, connection.
Yeah.
We're balance, we're talking about a lot of things. There's different kind of success, of course, but yeah. I love this conversation. It's really amazing. But you know what, I have to kind of jump off. Do you want to stay and wrap it up, or do you want us to wrap it up now, or?
No, I think we can wrap it up. Thank
Hey,
you so
awesome.
much.
By the way, I just love those colors where you are. That's like so beautiful. Yeah.
A little jungle.
Yes. Feeling into the jungle. Thank you all for joining us today and joining us through the recording. Really appreciate your support and your interest in our talks, and hopefully you get something out of these, as we do. I really did from this one. Oh my goodness. I always do, but this was like really juicy.
Thank you,
Thank
Kirsi.
you.
Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Ciao.
Bye.